Of the systems that we're going to see today, the Roman numeral system is probably the one that you have the most familiarity with coming in, as it's the one that's still used to this day the most often in Western society, whether it's in the labels on an analog clock or in reference to the count of a certain very famous sporting event that you are not supposed to say the name of unless you want to be sued. Super Bowl.
Shh! You wanna get sued?
Well, we still do have Roman numerals in our everyday lives on occasion, and that makes some sense, as the Roman numerals were still fairly regularly used in Europe until about the 18th century, when they had been pretty fully supplanted by the Hindu-Arabic system. But the numerals themselves actually date back to the founding of Rome around 800 BCE, where they were said to have come from the Etruscan numeral system, until they eventually formed into what we're more familiar with around 80 years into the Common Era, where the Roman system has some base 10-like figures. It's also a bit of a tally system in terms of how those eyes, as they were, figure into play, but it has that unique feature that hopefully you're somewhat familiar with, where as it gets closer to a specific changeover value, they flip the order. So normally, things in the system are written in descending order coming from the left side down, except for when you hit those changeovers, like where 9, instead of being 9 separate pieces, is an IX, or as we may see with things like CM for 900, there is that splitting. Where I'll say that also, even though we're not going to look at them here, the numerals in Rome, well, I said it in that backwards fashion, but I guess I did, had extra features that aren't included, such as numerals for fractions and infinity. And while they did have an understanding of what 0 was, they didn't have a specific symbol for it. But anyway, let's take a look at a couple of examples with what is hopefully the system we already know the best. So first, we want to write 1984 as a Roman numeral. Very Orwellian of us. But for this, what we're going to need is 1,000, 900s, 8 tens, and 4, where, again, we're going from left to right in descending order. So, if we need 1,000, that means we need an M. And from there, if we need to get 900s, remember that in the Roman system there's that special changeover, so instead of having 9 separate hundreds or a 500 followed by 4 hundreds on top of it, we'll have a CM to say we're at the 100 before 1,000. And then for 80, well, we don't have a lot of great options, but we do have the L to denote 50, and then 3 X's, and then finally for the 4, remember we're doing 1 before, so it's not going to be I, instead it will be IV. And that's how we would represent the value 1984 as a Roman numeral. But let's get one more example going in the other direction. So for this, we want to write the value MMM, CM, X, CIX is a Hindu-Arabic numeral. Okay, so looking at our pieces, first we can start with those 3 M's, where we know that M is going to be 3,000. And then because we have that CM, we saw that in the last one, but CM is a representation of 900. XC, that's the 10 before 100, so XC is 90, and IX is 9. So put all that together, and what we'll end up with is 3,999, where I picked that value in particular because with this system as represented, it is actually the largest value that we can possibly have. However, in the system, as I mentioned, there was that special symbol for infinity, And they also had a notation that we don't see here, where if you put a bar over a specific value, you were said to be multiplying it by 1,000. So if you wanted to get 1,000,000, you would take one of the m's and put a bar over it to add that value. It's kind of a nice place value system precursor, if you will. But anyway, the next system we'll see will be going into a bit of a less European locale, as we'll be talking about the Chinese numeration system.